the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him, and crying out with a loud voice, he said, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he was saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." So there's a chapter in the book, Drowning Swine, called Name Your Demons. All right, but anyway, that's the idea. We'll talk about that when we get there. What is your name? My name is Legion, for we are many. And he, the demon, begged him, Jesus, earnestly not to send them, the demons, out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him, saying, "Send us to the pigs. Let us enter them." So he, Jesus, gave them permission. You see how those pronouns change. When you live in a passage, you notice things like this. Sometimes Legion is he, sometimes Legion is them. It's very interesting, right? Is he plural or is he singular? Which one is he? So Jesus gave them permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. So my title, Drowning Swine, is not that far-fetched. It comes right out of this verse. They drowned in the sea. The herdsmen fled and told it to the city and in the country. And people came to see what it was that had happened. And they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had the legion, sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it described to them what had happened to the demon-possessed man and to the pigs, and they began to beg Jesus to depart from their region. And he was getting into the boat. The man who had been possessed, as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. And he did not permit him. Jesus did not permit this recently healed man, but said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. This is the word of the Lord. All right, wow, so much. You know, my big problem, I told Paige yesterday, my big problem with this passage is don't get bogged down. You got to keep rolling, because there's so much to say. I can't say everything that there is to say. But this story is paradigmatic. It really does form for us a way of understanding our relationship to God and what Christ has come to do in our lives. And there's so much to it. But let's jump right in and see what happens. I want to begin with an application statement, which is this. If you're with Jesus, if that's the way of life you've decided to walk, He's become your Savior, you've accepted Him, you want to be known as a Christian, you want to be known as a follower of Christ, and then this passage has a lot of news for us, and that is, we're likely going to see a lot of darkness pressing in. Not just darkness, generally speaking, in the world, but darkness that gets in your face. And that's what happens with this demoniac. He immediately gets into the face of Jesus. And the same thing happens to you. I mean, as soon as you say, I want to follow Jesus, I want to be a Christian, everything begins to creep in. All of the temptations of the world become all that much more powerful in your life. All of the power of your flesh just sort of goes on extreme. And you see dark things in the world that you perhaps didn't see before. And they just sort of press themselves in on you and get into your face. The bottom line is the devil does not want light in your life. The devil wants darkness in your life. So if you take a turn toward the light, then you can expect the demons and the devil and the world and your own flesh to start crowding in to try to extinguish the light in your life. And so here it is in the passage, back to verse 1. There, they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. All right, let's stop there for just a moment. Jesus and the disciples are on a boat. They come across the Sea of Galilee to the country of the Gerasenes. I liken this to crossing over to the other side of the tracks. So they were on the good side of town where crime rates were not so high. Now they're on the boat and they're crossing the lake and they're going to a place where it's very, very different. It's very dark. It's a land of shadows. It's a land where very few people acknowledge God or care about His Word, and where people live for their flesh. It's the land of the Gerasenes, or if you're in the Matthew, the Gadarenes passage. There's a little bit of textual issue there, which I'm not going to get into. I'm just going to say this. Jesus was here-ish. Gennesaret, Capernaum, His ministry is here. Generally on the northwest side of the Sea of Galilee. They get into a boat and they come over here to the east side of the Sea of Galilee, and over here is a land of darkness. It's crossing over to the other side of the track. It's a place where Jesus says, we've got to go over to the other side, and the disciples would be like, why are we going over there? We're just asking for it. We're just asking to get shot. I mean, why would we go to the ghetto? Let's stay out of the ghetto. Let's don't go into those parts of town that are bad parts of town. But one thing you'll notice about Jesus every time you read about Him in the Gospels is He is a missionary, Miss Lawrence. He is a missionary. He wants to go to the places where there's the most darkness. And He wants to preach the truth of the light of the gospel to those places that seem the darkest places of all. Our way of thinking is you got to stay out of there. Jesus' way of thinking is no, that's where you got to go. And that ought to convict us, by the way, in terms of how we do ministry. Instead of avoiding the hard stuff, we need to get into the hard stuff. We need to, instead, somebody says, well, crime's bad, but that's where you need to go. Oh, you might get shot there. That's where they need Jesus there. But we avoid those places. We want to take the gospel to people who already believe. Well, they already believe. Why do we want to take it to them? See? But Jesus is taking the gospel to a very dark land. Around this part of the Sea of Galilee, this is zoomed out, and you'll notice Galilee is Jewish. It's Israel. And of course, if you come down here, there's Judah below the map there. That's where Jerusalem is. Samaria is in the middle, so that's not a great place either. There's a lot of darkness there. But over here, this area is called the Decapolis, on the southeastern side of the Sea of Galilee. And in this place, you know, Decapolis means the 10 cities. Well, in this place, the Greeks have had so much influence. All these 10 cities were basically Greek Hellenized cities. There was still some Judaism left, but not much. And all these towns, for example, had a Greek theater. They were more interested in entertainment than they were in the truth. And then what you had over there that really proves this point is you had pig farmers. If you're a Jewish person living in the first century, guess what you don't have? A pig farm. So if you go over to an area and there are people making money off swine, they have 2,000 heads of pig in their flock, in their herd, then you're in non-Jewish territory. Not only are you're not supposed to eat pork if you're Jewish, certainly you wouldn't raise them and make money on them or farm them. So we're in terms of the Jewish way of thinking in the first century, very dark territory in this Decapolis area on the southeastern shore of the Sea of Galilee. And Jesus says, we got to go over to the other side. He wants to go over there. Say, where'd this guy come from? All these like demons in it. He lives over there in the Decapolis, in that dark area known as the Gerasenes, the land of the Gerasenes. So there we go. He steps out of the boat and he steps onto the land, and as soon as that foot steps on the land, here comes this wild-eyed, demon-possessed man, and all of the darkness of 1,000 demons just pressing in on Jesus before he gets a chance to step off the boat. That's how fast it is. And you know how Mark loves that word immediately. He's like, well, I had to use that word here. Immediately, this demon-possessed man met him, and he's got this unclean spirit inside of him. And this is my point. If you follow Jesus, He's going to take you places. He's going to say, let's go over there. Let's go over here. Let's do this. And as soon as you get over there, there's going to be some startling things. Like, wait a minute, what's going on? Nobody wants to encounter this guy. Nobody wants to hang out with this guy. Nobody's like, hey, let's go help him. This guy is crazy. He's lost his marbles. Talk about mental illness. Robert and I played George Ward the other day. Is that right, George Ward? Downtown disc golf. Birmingham downtown. The thing about this is it's an old disc golf course. They built it in the 90s, so it's really old as far as the sport's concerned. It's very beautiful, a lot of great disc golf there. But all these homeless people, I mean, there are hundreds of homeless people like lining the woods in their tents, and they're under the bridges. And then I saw a news report a couple of days ago that they had just found a dead man in one of the gullies out there. Just you know, they're dying. They're just there doing drugs, alcohol, and they die. And the city just lets them do this thing. So we're out there throwing the disc like, oh no, that went into a dude's tent. What am I going to do? And I don't want to go over there and get the disc. I'm like, keep it. Just keep that thing. Moving on. And there was one guy, Robert will tell you, I mean, he was coming out of this, I don't know what, it almost looks like I don't know what it is. It's like a shelter type thing that's made out of brick. And they're packing homeless people, and that's where they live. That's their house. And this one guy was just out there bathing and looking at us while we were like, okay, good throw. And he's like, watching. And I don't know how to feel about that. I'm like, what is happening here? And you look at people and you see a look in the eye of some people like, something's not right. Something's going on. And the last thing I want to do in my Western white way of thinking is go over there and talk to them. I don't know what they're going to say. Is it going to be like this? Where is this darkness pressing in? What is that like? And the disciples had to feel that way. They had to feel that way. Nobody wants to get into this and have to deal with all the mess of it. And so Jesus steps out, and there he comes, living the old graveyard life. And I want to ask you a question this morning. I want to make this as personal as I can to myself, as I'm preaching to myself, and then also to you, as I hope I'm preaching to you. Are you living a graveyard kind of life? Now, you don't have to physically be living in the graveyard to be living a graveyard kind of life. But the thing about the graveyard life is the graveyard life stinks of death. Where if you're living the graveyard life, you know it. Because you're like, I don't feel alive. I'm numb on the inside. I don't feel connected to God. I don't feel connected to people. I don't even feel connected to myself. My whole life is routine. My body, my muscles, they just do their thing. And I go day after day after day, and then those days turn to weeks, and the weeks turn to months, and the months turn to years, and I feel like I haven't ever really lived. It's just all been sort of zombie, death-like life. The culture of death. The graveyard life. It's the worst kind of life of all, if you think about it. Because you're living among the tombs. Doesn't it strike you that of all the places the legion would want this man to be, or that this man would want to be who's possessed by a legion of demons, is he goes and finds the cemetery. And he's just there. And here comes his family, and they want to go see Papa's grave. And he's just out there naked, wandering around. They're like, Papa, he'll have to be all right, but we got to go. Papa, he's in heaven anyway. You know, that's not him. We got to go. We're not going to try to wrestle with this guy. So he's just really making life miserable for everybody as he lives among the tombs. But I believe that that's symbolic. I mean, I think it really happened, don't get me wrong. But I think it's, as we apply it, it's symbolic to our lives. Just like the bugle guy holding the Bible out here as a symbol. This is a symbol. And we are often, maybe not possessed by demons. Maybe you've got your own demons that aren't external unclean spirits, but your flesh is the demon. But for whatever reason, so many of us choose this life. That we want to live among the tombs. Just dead. No desire to feel love, to be loved, to love other people, to feel the vibrancy and the joy of prayer and scripture study and a relationship with God. We don't want those things. We just want to live in our comfortable graveyard, cemetery, dead, numb lives. Just nothing, nothing, nothing. Then I can get drunk. Then I wake up. And I got a hangover. Nothing, nothing. Watch some TV. Watch a movie. Scroll to Facebook. Get drunk. Get high. And that's the rhythm of life for a dead person living among the tombs. I know he's extreme. I get it. He's got 1,000 demons in it. But in his extremity, he's a picture of how so many people choose to live. Among the tombs, the old graveyard life. Nobody could bind him anymore. I mean, they tried. We want folks in the neighborhood to be able to go see Papa's grave, you know. Well, we got to subdue this guy. We got to bring him down. They tried. But because he's possessed with this sort of superhuman type of unclean spirit, he can bust the chains. Isn't that crazy that that's in the Bible? Busting the chains. He'd often been bound with shackles. People had tried. You know, let's get the posse up. We'll go. That's enough of that guy. We are taking him down. Just to get them chains. We're done messing around. You tackle him, Zeke. You tackle him, I'm going to wrap these chains around him. We're done with this. You had a bunch of people trying it. The police, the protection troops try it, and none of them can do it. They don't know what to do with the guy. He keeps breaking them apart. He breaks the shackles apart. And he's running around naked in this cemetery. And they finally just give up. No one could subdue him. They said, well, as long as he stays in the graveyard, I guess he'll be all right. Maybe a tree will fall on him. You know. What a story. Night and day. He doesn't give up. John Piper, the pastor, he's a poet as well as a pastor. And he wrote this poem about this story. And I put it in the book, Drowning's Fun, because the poem was so powerful. And in the poem, John Piper imagines that this man has a wife and children. And what life must have been like for them. For her husband to be the naked guy in the cemetery. That nobody could bind with chains because he kept popping them and breaking them open. What that must have meant for her and the kids socially in that small neighborhood that they lived in. Everybody's got that black sheep in the family we don't want anybody else to know about. Right? Where's your husband? Well, you don't really want to know that story. She probably just wished he would die. I mean, he's not bringing anything good into the world. He's just miserable and making everybody miserable. Night and day. There's never a reprieve or a break. Night and day. Among the tombs, he's just running around on the mountains, always crying out. "Ah!" Always crying out. What an annoyance. Somebody just put a bullet in his head. People can go this far. And if you're not this far, there's a road that leads to that. And there's a lot of people on that road. They're not on the mountains and in the tombs crying out, but they're on the road toward it. They're living the graveyard life, and they're walking toward it. Let me ask you a question. Are there ways in your life, even now, even as a believer, are there ways that you regularly harm yourself? We always talk about be good to other people, don't harm other people, be kind to other people. But we don't talk very much about what we do to ourselves and how our own sins and dark ways of life affect us. The consequences that has on our body and our minds and our souls. Darkness, for whatever reason, loves to kill itself. You see it in Star Wars. The Sith, I mean, they need each other, the two of them, but they're trying to kill each other the whole time. It's just a weird dynamic. The devil wants the power, wants to be God, and yet everything he does, it leads to his eternal damnation. Darkness is always killing itself, shooting itself in the foot. Every single year in this world, there are enough people that commit suicide to fill the city of Miami. That's how many people every year in the world kill themselves. Every year, Miami disappears because people kill themselves. My own brother is one of them. Darkness wants to hurt itself. We think darkness is always trying to hurt others, and it does hurt others. Of course it does. But if you look closely at it, it always is hurting itself in some way. We do things to ourselves to harm ourselves all the time. Look at your life. What is it that you do to yourself that's hurting your lungs, your brain, your heart, your body, your blood vessels, your mind, your mental abilities? What sorts of things are you feeding yourself, putting into your body, or watching that contaminates and pollutes yourself and cuts yourself up? Darkness has a way of hurting itself, and that's one of the most interesting features of this passage, that Mark would throw this in as a little throwaway detail. I think a lot of people think that he was taking rocks and cutting his own flesh with it. I always thought, in the book I made a comparison here between this and what we hear teenagers are doing in middle schools and high schools. They take knives and they cut up their own flesh. Wear long sleeves, and the counselors and the teachers are like, what's going on there? Why? Why would you take a knife and slice your own flesh? And the research shows that people cut themselves up because they say, because I'm not feeling anything. And so when I cut myself, at least I feel something. When I feel pain, I feel alive. That's what they say. It's the suicidal graveyard life. How can I take myself out? How can I take myself down? And we all do this. People who know that this particular drug will bring damage to my body, or eating this kind of food or this amount of food is going to destroy me. People who know the data and listen to their doctors will still do the behavior because, why? Because darkness always wants to take itself out and harm itself. One of the key spiritual barometers in your life that lets you know where you are with the Lord is, are you hurting yourself in some way? In what ways do you hurt yourself? It's a very important question. I'm looking at the clock and I'm looking at this question and I'm thinking, this is it. Yeah, this is it. So we'll pick it up next week. How do your theological beliefs compare to Legion's? Legion was a really good theologian. Oh, you're the Son of the living God. The Apostle Peter, said the same thing. It's good theology. How does our theology compare to Legion's? We'll pick it up there. So if everybody will take just a second to close your eyes as I go through all this. Now open your eyes. This is why I love a small church. You can't get away with that in a big church. Number one, closing questions just for us to think about as we close today. Number one, will you help fight the graveyard way of life? In your own life, whatever, and there, I'm assuming there's degrees to this, You may say, I'm 40% graveyard, 60% Jesus. So in your own life, but also in the world, in the lives of people around you, what can you do to fight this graveyard way of life? You know it's there. You know it drags people down. How can you fight it? And number two, I think answers the first question. Will you call out on Jesus for help instead of everything else that we call out onto for help? I got word, I was talking to a friend and he told me that he knew of someone that was very actively using ChatGPT as their therapist. And I can't say that I haven't tried that myself. Just like, let me put in my feelings and my emotions and see what this thing will say. And it's surprising how helpful ChatGPT can be as a therapist. But I realized very quickly, you can get some good information from ChatGPT, which may help you in some ways. But ChatGPT, as it turns out, is not the light of life. And in fact, can very quickly be another pathway into the graveyard if you're not careful. It's so easy to call out on ChatGPT, help me. It's so easy to call out on the internet, Google, help me. Or it's easy to call out on a friend, help me, I need somebody to talk to. Or call out on the church, or call out on some well-known teacher. So easy to call out on anybody and everybody else except Jesus. And so often we are looking for help in all the wrong places. The only one who can overcome this legion of demons and bring light into this man's life and into our lives today is the Lord Jesus Christ. And He is either real or He's not. And if He is real, then you can call out on Him and He will hear you call. You say, no, my life is just too dark. He goes to the dark places. He crossed the lake to get over there to you. That's where He goes. He goes to wherever you are. You say, no, my life is too bad. My life is too dark. I've been in the graveyard too long. Well, hey, listen. You have not been in the graveyard longer than that dude. That dude was in the graveyard longer. He had fallen further. He had self-harmed himself to the point where everybody wished he would just die. And yet Jesus came to him and brought him the only solution that would work for him in that situation, which we'll get into next time. But Christ brought the solution. I'm always amazed at myself. And I just look at myself and say, are you some kind of an idiot? When I call out on anybody or anything else other than Jesus. And Jesus is almost like He's always standing there like, here I am. And you're like, well, let me try ChatGPT. And then you look at him and He's like, did it work? No. Let me try Google. Let me try this doctor. Let me try this medicine. Let me try this vacation. Let me try this affair. Let me try this. Let me try this. And the whole time Jesus is just like, are you done yet? Trying it all of it? Let me ask you this question in closing. When will you call out on Jesus? When are you going to do it? Are you going to wait till your deathbed? Is that when you're going to call out on Him? Why would you wait that long? All of us have a little legion in us. I believe that. I believe Legion and these dark, unclean spirits are a picture of sin and the way it works in our lives. So why don't you just run up to the boat the way Legion did? Run to Jesus. He's the only one who can help.